Welcome to UberCube, the podcast where we discuss all things cube, but with refreshments. This is your host, Anthony Adams, aka UberBear, and today I'm joined by my two lovely hosts, but the most lovely host is, in fact...
Hi, it's me, Magic, also known as May.
And then our second lovely host.
Stu. I'll carry that. I'll be the second loveliest. Anthony, I don't know where that leaves you, but I'll take second.
I don't know where I go when we bring guests on. This one's an interesting one. So I intentionally kept the team a little bit in the dark with a project, and it was with intent. I was messaging back and forth to May and our good friend Rinth, who I didn't necessarily explain an assignment, and it was with good intent. It was to allow their creative juices to flow without restriction, without copying my idea, but just to toss out to the universe a cube concept. And we're going to have a multi-part series, I believe, out of this now.
I hope so.
Yeah, where we've got this cool little idea that we're constructing together as a team. And before we even explain it further, I would like some community responses on this particular cube. We're looking for something pretty wild and unusual. But before we unveil this package that we're going to talk about, we're going to do the thing that we always do here at UberCube, and we're going to enjoy our libations of the show. And let's start out with our number one host, May.
So I'm actually having a mango White Claw this time.
Ooh,
that sounds refreshing.
that sounds delicious.
I am going to be having myself a Wicked Weed Pernicious Haze Hazy IPA.
Very nice. And I also have a Wicked Weed. This is their Pernicious IPA.
Yeah, this was one of those ones that sold out. I remember, and I hate the word sold out. They sold their brewery. It was, I believe, to InBev for $35 million. This was one of the flagships out of Asheville, North Carolina. But they did do it under the promise, under the stakes, that the original brewmasters could, in fact, keep their original recipes and they wouldn't be adulterated, because oftentimes when those macros consume them, we had this whole conversation with the fellows about, like, I believe it was Pelican Island out of New York, where they kind of modified the recipe, and New Belgium's kind of modified some recipes.
New Belgium has kind of been the poster child, I feel, for that, because that hasn't quite been where it used to be.
Yeah, they got those Juice Force everything. We talked about Juice Force coconut, Juice Force coffee's coming soon.
Yeah.
I mean, it's pretty wild to watch.
There's going to be a TV show coming soon, animated Juice Force.
Yeah, so we don't only follow Cube here at UberCube, we also follow the beer, I guess, market and try to figure out what's happening with these large scale versus the micros. Got to keep up with what's going on here. All right, let's go ahead and crack them open and we'll get to the topic. All right, so we've got a spicy episode to talk about with you today. And in fact, it is based on, this was the idea that I pitched to the team. I've been speaking with our good friend Rinth and he and I have been chatting back and forth about this wonderful cube, the spicy ramen cube, which is one of the CubeCon cubes that's going to be featured in 2024. So I'm really excited about this.
It's pretty cool because Rinth admitted himself. Rinth said that new to Cube and just decided to throw this spicy ramen cube together. And Anthony, this kind of belies the experience that Rinth seems to have in this cube, because it's pretty solid for, I don't know if it's a first effort, maybe it's his first effort at a cube, but it's pretty incredible kind of, level of work that he's done for this one.
And we're actually going to have Rinth on a future episode. Rinth and I have been going about talking about this idea that I've had, this strange concept that I pitched to the team, and Rinth himself, as I gave an assignment to the team. So here was the assignment. Pitching off the idea of the ramen. So ramen's basically like a 35 cent, making different ramen varieties, just the most beautiful TLDR you've ever seen. I'm like, well, I want to do something that's multifaceted. And here's how it's going to be. This is a weird project. This was in my head, not telling the team. I want to go through the steps of building a top-down design cube. But I don't want to restrict the group from their creative ideas that they may have as individuals. And then the idea is that we theory craft this cube together and with the community. That's the big idea here. And that everybody pushes together this amalgamation of cards showing how easy and complex it can be to build a cube. And then we can find ways to sew them together, to cross-pollinate these ideas, figure out what works, what doesn't work. Because everybody's going to put in cards. And maybe not all cards will be well supported. And that's okay. So what did I give them for a premise? Simply one. I need you to make me a sushi roll. It's a pretty weird thing to tell. And May's like, I don't understand. Is this the assignment?
Yeah, I did not understand.
It was intentional.
Like, it took me, like, kind of cheating a little and looking at the cube that you provided anyways to kind of see what you were doing and kind of, like, trying to interpret what you were trying to do. And then I think that I picked up what you were trying to put down, and then I was like, all right, how can I approach this problem?
And it's so
I
interesting.
went in with, like, only the context of, hey, we're making sushi rolls. And I'm like, what? No, like, with magic cards. I repeat, what?
Yeah, and then it was funny because I kind of just answered vaguely. I was doing this really intentional because I really believe in the strength of the reader-writer relationship. And I wanted you two to write, and including Renth, to write their own stories, to come up with their own idea. The thing that gave them the lulls, gave them the chuckle. And part of this was actually, to be honest with you, is because we've made jokes with Stu with how he's trying to build this Doom Cube forever. And this is just to get that creative flow so he can start seeing how we're kind of going through the step-by-step process. And in order to ease the pain on this a little bit, originally I just kind of typed this up as an idea. I said, let's build some sushi rolls. Let's put it in a script. And I'm thinking, why am I not just building this cube? Why don't I just start constructing it so you, the listeners, can watch the process as we do this, and or you can reach out to me via the UberCube Discord, join it, and then submit a sushi roll package or something that follows this type of idea.
I actually think that's where a lot of the beauty of this cube could potentially come from, is that engagement that we want from our listeners, from people on social media, on the Discord, on Twitter. Let's get as many contributions to this as possible, because every little set of ideas that we get that come into the cube could potentially lead to just an explosion in even more inventiveness and ingenuity and creativity. So I'm super excited. I think this is going to be awesome.
So right now, again, I was being ultra vague with them. Build me a sushi roll. I'm like, I'm going to build a California roll. And they're like, I don't understand anything you're talking about. And I'm like, just let me do what I'm doing. So I pulled up the recipe for a California roll, which I've made them at home before. And I'm a big sushi lover. And I started looking at the ingredients. Well, how do I now take cards and equate them to the certain subset in my own vision to what they equal within the ingredients within said sushi roll? And then I'll add them to the cube. Now, again, right now we're sitting at approximately 17 cards to date. That's where we're at. That's not a cube. The only caps and limitations I did in my brain was right now I would ideally like this to be an 180 card cube, 4 players. Why, you might ask that? Well, as a side note, for those who haven't played the game Sushi-GO, which is included in the show notes, I'll have a link for it. Sushi-GO is a drafting game, because May hadn't played Sushi-GO, had you, May? We were kind of talking about this before. So Sushi-GO is this neat little deck builder game. So all you're doing is passing around these different components of sushi, or basically dumplings, or whatever you've got. You're basically building a menu. And in the game, it's when you're done with the draft, that is the game. And then you point score, and then you do a course of 3 rounds, and or you play the bigger version. There's a lot of expansions. This game is amazing. But you're just kind of moving around the game, doing deck manipulation, trying to corner the market, if you will, on certain things. And you're trying to complete like subsets. Maybe you have to get X amount of, I don't know, let's say sashimi, and if you get 3 of these, it's worth X amount of points. And you know, if you finally finish that out as your final card set, you get that many points to add to your totalization, and then you advance forward on the board state. It's so wild.
And what it's sort of felt to me, what it did when we first got the assignment and when I started looking up, I was like, this is the game. This isn't like to build towards just building a cube. This is the game right now, is the building and the ideas and the passing round of pieces and all that kind of stuff. It took me a few minutes to kind of figure out like, oh, that's what Anthony's trying to do.
Yes.
But as soon as I understood that, I was like, this is going to be so much fun.
So the vagueness was intentional. And what we want to do is take these kind of other ideas we've done. So I did the Monopoly, and I built out the Monopoly and made it into a real cube. Mm-hmm. I was thinking Sushi-GO, not so well known. Maybe I could make this conceptually into a real cube. But also, I could blend in this idea of the Dumpster Fire Cube project simultaneously. Why can't I take all these ideas that we've talked about in various episodes and then smash them together, but not really explain the assignment, which made it funnier? And that's where the creative juices are going to kind of flow as we talk about the cards that they want to introduce and Renth introduced. We'll kind of get to it, and it'll make sense. So
well,
let's
do that.
Way of doing it.
Yeah, let's start cracking into the cube contributions that we started out with. May, let's start with you and your delightful list. Yeah, you need to scroll down.
So how I took the interpretation of it was that we were essentially trying to introduce a package into this cube. But I wanted to do it in a way where I wanted to have like a sort of archetypal theme that I was going for. So I particularly like spicy rolls, and I wanted to start off with kind of like a Godzilla roll as kind of the theme. So I was thinking, what kind of goes along with that kind of tempura shrimp? You aren't going to find shrimp in Magic, right? So instead, I took it from, hey, let's just take something that is kind of shrimpy looking, but also is red. Because red is very much of the, fried food color, right? That's where you're going to get a lot of that heat, that spice, that fried food. So I actually started off with Furnace Scamp. And on top of the name and both the art just looking pretty appropriate for, I could imagine this being put on a sushi roll.
So tell us what Furnace Scamp does, because I actually, some of these cards, as always tends to be the case when we're doing projects like this or we're looking at cubes, I find Magic cards that I've never seen this card before. So tell us this one.
So it's a 1-mana 1/1. It's a beast, and whenever it deals combat damage to a player, you may sacrifice it. If you do, it deals 3 damage to that player. So, as a card itself goes, it's kind of just an okay card. If you can connect with it, then great, you get big payoffs. If you don't, then you just kind of have a 1/1 for 1. But
not a terrible card
I felt
to be
like
able
that
to
was kind of the building block that I wanted to start with. I want this to be red. I kind of want this to kind of be like a burning type thing, some kind of introduction of burn, maybe some kind of that red aggro package. And how am I going to sort of build this Godzilla roll?
It is fiery. You say you like spicy. This is spicy, fiery, hot. Like, this, to me, is like the perfect start. Like, I'm setting the stage very early on. If I'm putting a card called Furnace Scamp, it's my shrimp in my fiery roll, then I'm about it.
A lot of sushi. This one's cooked. And what better to represent that than red?
Well, I want to pitch something to you, and I want you to pull it up on Scryfall for me real quick. But I intentionally didn't deliver my ideas and my thoughts because I wanted you to have your own creative flow. But pull up the art, and this will be in the cube, at Sushi, the Blazing Sky. It's actually the premiere art, but now look at it, and it looks like a shrimp.
I mean, I guess, but like, that's a very long name.
But also,
dragon.
What's in the name?
I think that's a bit of a stretch, but I do like the at sushi being in the sushi.
I would almost argue that's a little bit too literal.
It's on the nose. It's on the nose.
Yeah, a little bit too much.
I like me some on the nose reference. So.
All right, what's the next one? What you got?
So the next one that I went with was actually Balefire Liege as the second one, because that cream cheese is kind of the offsetting complementary flavor to go with the kind of spicy sauces and shrimp tempura and whatever to bring it back down into that kind of more grounded flavor. So I went with Balefire Liege, which is 2 Boros for a 2/4 Spirit Horror. Other red creatures you control get +1/+1, and other white creatures you control get +1/+1. Whenever you play a red spell, it deals 3 damage to target player, and whenever you cast a white spell, you gain 3 life. So this one I started with on the second part because I was like, I kind of want this to be like burn thing, but how can I make cream cheese and burn work in like the same kind of shtick? And then I saw Balefire Liege and I was like, perfect. Nice. Everything from the art to the delivery, I felt like that it was that kind of perfect representation of the offset of spicy, sweet, creamy, whatnot.
You know what I love about this, if I may, right? You've gone from Furnace Scamp, which is cool. It's like a 1/1, right? Here's my little bit of shrimp. You've gone from that straight to the 5-mana bomb finisher, like no remorse. I'm pumping all my creatures. I'm swinging for lethal. I'm swinging with my Furnace Scamps and whatever else I've got out there. I love that there's just no middle ground between those cards, right? That, as far as you've just gone from 0 to 100 in a nanosecond. I love that.
Exactly, because I kind of was looking at it from like the top-down approach of I want this to kind of represent my low end and this to kind of represent my like upper end cards. So I kind of wanted to take the additional like, I guess, an additional line to this thinking where I wanted to show like a sort of like progression with each of these creatures, right? Where like the next card is Heartflame Duelist, where it's 1 and a white for a human knight 3/1. Instants and sorceries you control have lifelink. But more importantly, it has an adventure part that says Heartflame Slash, 2 and a red, and then it can deal 3 damage to any target. So this one was important to represent the kind of bridge part between Furnace Scamp and Balefire Liege, because Balefire Liege is our cream cheese here. Like, it's our main complementary flavor. But Heartflame Duelist can either be like our slices of carrots, our slices of imitation crab. Like, I took it from a very, like, interpretive look at its art and thought those swords looked at, like, little slices of sushi that you would put, like, on a roll. And I was like, this is, like, a pretty nice artistic interpretation of that.
And this is part of this conversation, is the artistic representation that other curators may see through their lens. Going back to like the Monopoly, where I'm telling Mace that this is the top hat, and she's like, I don't see a top. Oh, there's a top hat. That's what we're doing. So like, this is going to be like an Easter egg riddle type of thing. And once we get all the components from the different people who explain the recipe components, because that is what I'm going to ask of participants in this idea, to give me like what ingredient and what's the motivation behind the ingredient, so that I can try to explain it the best I can in some little blurb or whatever. Mm-hmm. But it's really neat because as she's looking at this, and I named this, by the way, the Hellfire Godzilla roll by Chef May. Yeah, you're now Chef May. But I thought that was such a cool idea. This next one, actually, I want to ask you about, and it's Lathulnu the Hellion. And the reason why I want to talk about this is because it has energy in it, which unlocked a whole nother subset. Explain, please.
So I actually picked this one because I was trying to figure out how to get like a cucumber-esque card in red and white colors. So I actually went down the list of all of the red and white elementals, and then I was like, I'm going to look at Hellions, where they're just kind of like that long worm-shaped thing, and I'm just like, that can kind of be cucumber-esque.
Nice.
So I wanted to have the kind of cucumber stand-in without going outside of Boros, because I wanted to just kind of have this kind of be like a very clean package. But I decided to go with this Hellion because even though it introduces energy as a concept here, the thing that it does already like feeds itself. So it's 2 in a red for 4/4 Hellion with haste. When it enters the battlefield, you get 2 energy counters. At the beginning of your end step, you sacrifice it unless you pay 2 energy. So essentially, in combination with like Furnace Scamp and our Balefire Legion, etc., it kind of sets this premise of we are going all in aggro type ideas here, where we're not trying to really keep things on board as much as we're just trying to get out as much damage as possible while winning the race by getting like that little bit of extra health with the Balefire Liege and whatnot, or the Heartflame Duelist. And you get my point. Mm-hmm. Is that I wanted to take that kind of mechanical approach to make it sort of complementary to the red aggro package, while also still taking that artistic approach of, sure, this is kind of cucumber-esque.
And to be fair, we're in July 2024, so we just had Pro Tour Amsterdam, so Modern Horizons 3 has just been released a few weeks ago, and we're already seeing that there's a lot of energy support in that set. So we could certainly say, not that there hasn't been pretty decent support for energy in previous sets, but hey, maybe there's a great opportunity for that to become like a pretty core element when it comes to the cube.
I have a question for you though. How do we twist this? So let's twist this. Let's take energy. Let's break this down from a thematic standpoint. So sure. Raw fish, good source of protein, great for energy. Add rice to it, starch, sugar, sort of energy. But if anybody eats like a huge volume of sushi, they understand that their energy also gets depleted. You walk away like, oh my God, I ate too much sushi. So that's when I saw this, that's what I'm thinking of from like a creative standpoint. The energy kind of has like this weird role now in the cube. You introduced it. I didn't tell you what to do. No rails, right? But now I'm thinking about, like, how do you think about when you go to a sushi buffet? You start out like, oh, man, I feel really great. And then you're like, ugh.
Yeah, that was the other part that I kind of took the creative interpretation on, where I wanted to introduce cards that kind of sacrifice themselves as well, which is why I kind of gravitated towards that Hellion being the cucumber. Yeah. So that way I could have that kind of self-sacrificing thing going on. So that way, with another package that you put in earlier, where I was like, oh, we already have some things in there. We can have this as kind of like an overlap.
Yeah, so you're going to hear the word cucumber come up often because it shows up in a lot of different various sushi recipes. But it's interesting because we're going to have 3 iterations of what a cucumber means to a various curator, which is really neat. So let's go through mine, and then we'll go through Rinth's afterwards. But the original one that kind of started this, the conversation, where did all this come from? I was pre-gaming with the team talking about, May and I had probably at least a 15-minute conversation about crab abomination, right? Abomination, crab abomination?
Crabomination.
Crab abomination?
We had a lot of feelings about it.
Crabomination.
It's such a wild card. So this came out in Modern Horizons 3. This is what actually influenced this entire episode. What could I do with it? Originally, I pitched to the team. We were talking about doing, and we will do like a 1-card discussion. And this was going to be the 1-card discussion, but like, oh my gosh, I could do so much more with this card. So Crab Abomination for 4 colorless and 2 black. You get a creature, crab, demon. Emerge from artifact. So the emerge is it reduces the cost, so you can sacrifice an artifact. That's a new idea here. But for 5 colorless and 2 black, or 2 swamps, you can reduce the cost of this. When Crab Abomination enters the battlefield, target opponent exiles the top card of their library, a card at random from their graveyard, and a card at random from their hand. You may cast a spell from among cards exiled this way without paying its mana cost for a 5/5. Now, I don't want to get into all the semantics of this card. We could go back and forth. We all could talk about the various power levels. I know it showed up in a few power cubes. LSV has featured it, etc. May has feelings about this card. Would you call it the Yu-Gi-Oh! Yu-Gi-ization of Magic? That's a fair statement.
Yeah, it feels like it's just straight from Yu-Gi-Oh!
And that's okay. That's
I see
okay.
this as somebody who came to Magic from Yu-Gi-Oh!
But the more I thought about this, the more I pondered on this. I'm like, well, Crab Abomination sounds a lot like imitation crab meat to me, which is a major component.
Yeah, it's close.
Yes. We're going to go with that. So I'm the chef here now. So Chef Uberbear, I did a little twist on a classic, American classic rather, the California Bear. So I'm going to refer to this as.
I like that we both chose California rolls.
We're going to have our little different experiences. So you can experience the classic flavors of this enchanting roll filled with crab, imitation, crab abomination, avocado, and cucumber drizzled with the blazing sriracha sauce. So I want a little bit of tinge, a little spiciness to this,
Just
right?
a little spice.
That's what Chef Bear did here.
Yeah.
So what did I do? So Crab Abomination's my protein. We're going to call it protein, which could probably be realistically stingray wing, because it's who knows what actually goes in imitation crab meat. Don't ever watch a video on that. But then,
hang on, is it stingray wing?
I believe it's stingray, and it's other things too. They
Really?
actually, whenever they're off season, people can correct me on this, but they find other meat sources to make that imitation.
Well, I mean, if it's imitation crab, I'm assuming that it's
not,
just
in fact,
more
real crab
meat, right? So
crab's a very seasonal
in
creature.
fish.
Creative, yeah, fish.
And they get overfished. We're going to call it fish. So it's very Subway tuna. So
Subway tuna.
How do I do the avocado? So the avocado, I took some artistic liberty, and I said, well, my avocado, because I wanted a little bit of synergy, it's going to be Kodama of the West Tree, which I know works pretty good. For 2 colorless and 1 green, you get a legendary creature spirit. Reach, modified creatures you control have trample. Whenever a modified creature you control deals combat damage to a player, search your library for a basic land card and put it on the battlefield tapped. Then shuffle for a 3/3. That's my avocado.
Why does it not surprise me that at least one of yours is some kind of Lands Matters theme cards?
Yep.
I don't
And modified, so it's very artifact-centric.
You're never going to build a cube where there isn't some kind of Lands Matters theme. I'm convinced of it.
So this is interesting. So May, you did the hellion for your cucumber, which I appreciate. Me, I chose Bristly Bill, the spine sower, for my cucumber because I think cactuses look a lot like cucumbers. That's my artistic liberty.
There's some creative
similarities.
artistic liberties
I'm doing
being
this
thrown around here.
And so what did we get out of this? So you get Bristly Bill, Spine Sower for 1 colorless and a green. You get a 2/2 legendary creature plant druid. This card showed up in the Amsterdam series pretty big here, and it's actually spiked up in price.
It's part of the Nadu win
Has
condition.
landfall. I don't know if you know what that does, Stu.
No idea. What does that do?
Whenever
Anthony?
land enters the battlefield under your control, put a 1 counter on it. Does that modify creatures? Yes, it does. I found my own little synergies because I knew the rules of the game because I made the game. That's what's so fun about this, right? I'm keeping you all in the dark. But whenever it enters, put a 1 counter, and then you can pay essentially 5, which is 3 colorless and 2 green. You can double the number of +1/+1 counters on each creature you control. That's how I did my cucumber. So the final component, and there's actually a 5th one, but I didn't add it to the main page. But you got sesame seeds typically that are on them outside of the sriracha. Sriracha is represented in other places. But scatter the seeds because you scatter the sesame seeds. And what this allows me to have now is for 3 colorless and 2 green, I get an instant Convoke which is my creatures can tap for the color. Then put 3 1/1 green sapling creature tokens into play. I felt like we've got some modification here. We've got some counters that are happening. We have the ability to do some sacrifice synergies that later came about. I'm kind of just setting the stage for this idea for other people who add sushi rolls or whatever they want. It doesn't have to be sushi rolls. It can be nigiri. It can be sashimi. We're going to go nuts with this, right? We're literally ordering an entire menu. Again, based off of the spicy ramen cube, which is a great idea.
I like that both of you guys, and it kind of shows that how much I have to learn. Both of you guys have nice synergy with your cards, and mine is just an absolute clown fiesta. Like, there's nothing even remotely
I'm sure it's
that
beautiful.
links any of my... Well, I'll go through them real quick, because I actually...
Stu made the golden corral
I put
of
some
sushi.
thought into them, right? So
The golden corral of sushi.
the golden
oh,
corral.
No.
That is perfect. So we've got fish, first of all. I chose Frost Fair Lure Fish. I'm glad that we're early in the episode when I have to pronounce that card, because I don't think I could in about 35 minutes. This is a 7 mana fish, 5 colorless blue-red. When it enters the battlefield, you get 2 1/1 blue fish creature tokens and 2 tapped treasure tokens. Fish you control have haste and can't be blocked by humans. There's something in there. I don't quite know what it is yet, but there's something in there. And it has foretell for 3 and a blue and a red.
Interesting. All right, sure.
I mean, I kind of
think there's something here.
Yeah.
And then when you talk about the humans, my brain immediately goes to, we've already made personas for chefs, and as we get more chefs, they're going to be our humans.
That's right.
So we probably need to find an Anthony, a May, a Stu, a Rinth, and just kind of fill them as the humans, right? So we can do personifications. We can get pretty wild
I'm
here.
down for that.
Yeah.
All right. So my crab was very straightforward. It was just mirror shell crab. 5 colors,
All right,
2
sure.
blue for an artifact creature crab. It's a 5/7. It has ward 3, and you can channel for 2 and a blue to discard it to counter a target spell or ability unless its controller pays 3. Pretty sweet. But basic, right? It's crab. It's fish. But here's where I wanted to get a little bit spicy, right? So, avocado. I love me some avocado. But you know what I also like is havoc-ardo. Don't judge me. So this
great.
is an enchantment from Tempest. This is 1 and a red. Whenever target opponent successfully casts a white spell, he or she loses 2 life.
Interesting.
And it's got like this
Different.
someone in a burning tornado.
All right.
Yeah, we'll just leave it at that.
So
Well, maybe put these on-
they're essentially going to lose.
It is an
2 life.
interesting interpretation. of
Interesting.
things.
Exactly.
I like what you did there.
I'm
So-
burning you. Like, this is what you get for eating this really spicy sushi, okay? You're going to suffer.
I want to take it back again. I didn't explain the assignment, and you're going to hear more people take those liberties with not just the art, where May and I are trying to find physical, like something that looks artistically that we could explain looks like a cucumber. You're also going to find that other curators are going to kind of do nameplays, which is really great.
Exactly.
And
Like the
that's what
creative license is so open, right? You
It's
can do
pretty
whatever you
wild,
like.
that's
Well,
what-
and those, a couple of little, pretty literal ones, right? A fish, a crab, havoc for avocado, right?
Yeah, good old fashioned avocado.
This one, I put it in. I'm still not quite sure why.
I'm not either.
But not that I've ever or will ever expect to exsanguinate myself into a saucepan in order to cook any part of my sushi roll. But if
Sure.
I did, maybe I would be a blood boiler. A dwarven blood boiler. I'm not particularly small, but for
All
3
right,
and a
all right,
red.
sure.
For 3 and a red, you get a 2/2 dwarf, and you can tap an untapped dwarf you control, and target creature gets +2/+0 until end of turn.
I told you, Stu went to the Golden Corral of Sushi. He got
This
that
is-
boiled.
This is nowhere near the quality of Golden Corral sushi. Let's be honest. All right, and last but not least, seaweed.
Yep.
Right, so
this
everybody loves some
represent?
seaweed, but this is magic, and you know what we do in magic? We fight, we rumble, weed,
Not picking what you're dropping.
rumbleweed,
Rumbleweed.
rumbleweed,
Oh, Rumbleweed. Okay, I get what you're
rumbleweed
saying.
for 10 and a green.
Oh, yeah.
You get an 8/8 plant elemental, and it's this is I really don't know why I chose this card, but anyway, it's
Here
in
we
there.
are.
This spell costs 1 less to cast for each land card in your graveyard, but Hey, we're getting some land synergies.
Get some land
already.
synergies, I think.
It has vigilance,
Maybe.
reach, and trample. And when it ETBs, other creatures you control get +3/+3 and gain trample until end of turn. So, I got my seaweed. I got some way to boil my rice in my dwarven blood boiler. I've got my avocado. I've got my mirror shell crab meat, not imitation. And I've got my frostfair lurefish.
I think May and I have some curation to do when this is done. At least 3 cards.
So
Similarly,
the funny thing is that I didn't bother looking at the Outlaws of Thunder Junction set because just a majority of it's not going to fit within my cubes anyways. But you accidentally just found a secondary component for the fake cube that I've been needing. So
okay,
tell me that this is not the perfect companion card to Countryside Crusher.
Yeah. So
fantastic.
One of the interesting things, let's just go back to Sushi-Go for a minute. So these are things that I kind of kept from the crowd. I had them in my sideboard. I hid them from the group as I was updating the cube. I didn't want them to know what was happening. So as we're building this cube as a cube community, I wanted to leave some components out. I didn't want to overly influence. And listeners, you may be influenced now, right? I can't help the bias. But one of the things that I got from Rinth that I thought was amazing, because he actually said he wanted to try this in his ramen cube, was Cogwork Librarian. And everybody's talking about Cogwork Librarian. It pops up all the time. And for people who aren't familiar with this card, it's 4 colorless. You get a 3/3. You get an artifact creature construct. Drafts Cogwork Librarian face up. As you draft a card, you may draft an additional card from that booster pack. If you do, put Cogwork Librarian into the booster pack. Okay. So as I'm chatting back and forth with Rinth, and I'm like, he says that he's new to the cube game, but I can tell that also his creative juices are flowing. He starts pitching ideas. He's like, oh man, I'm finally getting the assignment. This makes sense to me too. Based on the spicy ramen, now they're digging this as well. And what's interesting about the Cogwork Librarian is it represents the chopsticks, and what you do in the game Sushi-Go, as you're doing the draft, you can take a chopstick and put it in and take a card, which is literally what Cogwork Librarian does. It makes me really ask if that was inspired by that Wizards. If you're listening, anybody from there, was Cogwork Librarian based on Sushi-Go? Because it's such an interesting concept where you do a swap out, and it's so cool. So this is 100% chopsticks, and that'll be and we could modify this art if we have to later to make it into that, but I think it's so cool that now we can go back to that base game, that Monopoly concept, and we can really stick to this idea. Another liberty that I took before we start going into what Rinth built, I wanted to represent Wasabi, and I chose a secret layer version of Acidic Slime, which is, for those who aren't familiar, for 3 colors, and green, you get a 2/2 creature ooze, which is this secret layer. It's just got this giant glob of wasabi. It's a blob of wasabi, right? Death Touch, when Acidic Slime enters the battlefield, destroy target artifact, enchantment, or land. I want to be really clear to the listeners. We don't know what this does yet. We don't know if these cards stick yet. We're only 17 cards right now. This is a nothing cube. It's just forming itself. It's coming from the ether. But if I'm going to do Wasabi, I'm going to toss this in. I know this is a good card, and I know this art just looks like a dollop of wasabi. Fair enough. You see that? Both of you agree?
I agree.
I like that interpretation a lot.
So this next one's a little reachy, but I wanted to start the removal process a little bit. Black only right now has an imitation crab meat, as we talked about. I wanted to represent soy sauce. You guys seeing this now? A little bit. It's reachy. Drown in ichor, because you always take that soy sauce and everybody just kind of goes a little nuts. We're gonna let it rest for now. But drown in ichor for 1 colorless and black, you get a sorcery. Target creature gets -4/-4 until end of turn, then proliferate. Now let's go back to Bristly Bill. And all those little interesting landfall things I was kind of doing, proliferation things were starting to happen. We can make it work. Sort of, kind of.
Obviously, you've had a greater amount of time to work on this than me.
I kept it secret. I did this in an afternoon.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. Okay.
Yeah, it's not a lot. But then May put in energy counters. I'm like, well, we get to proliferate those too because they're counters.
Yeah, might as well.
Boom.
I broke the seal.
You see what's starting to happen. Things are getting weird. But let's go back to, we're going to talk about one more here. Before we even get into Rent's decision here, we talked about the 3 cucumbers that have emerged. Right now we have your weird elemental. We've got my weird cactus. But it was interesting when Rent was given the assignment, they came up with over encumbered.
I
over
appreciate
in
the wordplay.
cucumbers?
At the
Yes.
very least.
They did, which I love. Thank you, Renth, for doing that. I truly appreciate you. For one colorless and one white, get an enchantment aura. Enchant opponent. When an overencumbered enters the battlefield, enchanted opponent creates a clue token, a food token, and a junk token. At the beginning of combat, on enchanted opponent's turn, that player may pay 1 for each artifact they control. If they don't, creatures can't attack this combat.
I would be interesting to know from Rinth. Obviously, it's got Cumber in it. So, did they go to Scryfall, type in cucumber, didn't get a return back, and then took out a C to get Ucumber, and still didn't get anything back, and then left out the U for Cumber, and then saw this? Because if they did, that's exactly how I was looking for the cards when I was doing this.
Well, it
To
shows
be
how...
fair,
Yeah.
I was also struggling with the cucumber. So the two things that I was actually considering to try to round out my package other than just the Hellion was I was tempted to do like a boar. So that way it would just be completely out of place. And it's just like, why is there a boar in your sushi rolls? That way it could be like, it's cucumber. Or to the other extent of if it's something like flame burst, then it could be like it's a cucumburst or some garbage like that. But then eventually I just settled on it. It's like, I'm already following the like art theme, so I'm just going to stick to the art.
That's fair. I didn't get to the point.
So I appreciate that somebody did the wordplay.
Yeah, I didn't get to the point of looking up varieties. Like there's Hot House. Is that a cucumber? I think Hot House is a type of
yeah,
cucumber.
for sure.
Also,
Yeah.
I am going to be so upset if this cube does not have hot soup. Just saying.
We're gonna work on it. Some little bit of what is it? Also the ginger salad. We got to work on that too. We're gonna put all these placeholders in there, but I don't want to overly influence the audience. We're gonna let them kind of do the weird things they do, and everybody just kind of wants to submit this idea. And I know Bones is listening right now. Bones, you're gonna dig this idea. We're just trying to put together little packages, little rolls, and we're gonna add to this cube slowly. I'm not putting a great deal of restriction on it right now. Just let's let this become a community build. Let's get it to 180, see where it goes, and we'll work our way up from there. And try to be in the Sushi-Go. I'm now giving the guidelines the best I can.
I don't care about any of my submissions except for Havoc. I will throw a fit if there's no Havoc in the final product, okay? Mirror Shell Crab, I would understand. Rumbleweed and Dwarven Bloodletter, okay, fine. But we've got to have some avocado in there, please. Please, give me some avocado.
So I've actually built out an entire TLDR that's under construction. So as we get submissions and as we build this from community updates and from our friend circle or whatever, and people start thinking about this assignment a little bit, I will add to the TLDR the best I can and start updating it. So you can see this kind of cube. The overarching idea is so that we understand that building a cube is not that hard. That's really what I want to come from this. The outcome that I wish to have here, right, is so that listeners could say, I can take on a challenge. I could have a few little aspects of a game, a little bit of crowdsourcing, and that it's not that hard to build a cube, going back to some of our references.
Well, when you look, if your plan is to start this out as a 180, right, think about it this way. Building a 180 card cube is less than building 2 commander decks. And I'm going to hazard a guess, given the popularity of EDH as a format, that there's a lot of people out there, people that are going to listen to our podcast. But you get the point, right? There's only 200 cards in 2 commander decks, and there's less than that in a 180 cube. So who knows? It should be simple to get started, difficult to refine down to a finite level if you're getting to that stage in a cube. But to get started with something like this, and fun.
Yeah, it's going to start out as junk. Mm-hmm. We know this is going to be a pile. But then May and I will work together with some of our other curators, and we'll try to bring this in and make this.
I like that you say it like that. Like the pros over here.
Yeah.
The idiots with the English accent over there.
The people at Golden
that
Corral
doesn't know what he's doing are going to go to Golden Corral and work on this. Well, and we're not going to tell you about it. Yeah.
So let's talk about the Rinth roll. This is, again, based off of the entire concept that Rinth came up with the spicy ramen, which is, oh my God, please check out this cube. It'll be in the show notes and it will be in the TLDR. In addition to, I will have a Cube Cobra link to share with the audience so you can see this coming to life as we do it. But this is the Rinth roll. Unleash the power of our signature roll with spicy salmon, avocado, spicy mayo, and Tobiko. This roll will leave you spellbound. So here's what we have. A couple of cards that Rinth has added, and I love every one of these. As with, again, not understanding the assignment, which is fantastic. We've got Red Herring, which is strangely enough like some weird specialty card that was made. There's multiple copies of Red Herring, so I had to actually find that right art. But Red Herring for 1 colorless and 1 red. Get an artifact creature, Cluefish, 2/2, haste. Red herring attacks each combat if able. Pay 2, sacrifice red herring, draw a card. So this is the protein component of the Rinth roll. Here's where I love that Rinth actually he upscaled all of us. Like, we're all on the struggle here trying to figure out what we're going to do for the actual... We were all struggling what we're going to actually do with the Nori, and I think I actually did Norin the Wary for mine.
That's very smart.
No, it's not compared to actually getting Tangle Trove Kelp for 5 colorless and 2 blue, get a 6/6. Artifact creature, Clue Plant. Ward 2. At the beginning of each combat, other clues you control become 6/6 plant creatures in addition to their other types until end of the turn. Pay 2. Sacrifice Tangle Trove Kelp. Draw a card.
Why are these so many of these so difficult to pronounce? Did we do that on purpose?
I didn't even know this card existed.
Episode? All of us did that without knowing it, I think.
What? Me? I would never. I clearly only partake in easy to pronounce names.
I was said to myself, Frost Flare Fury? No, Frost Flare... No. Frost... Oh, forget about it.
Let's do a little top down before we proceed, though. This is interesting. So right now, incidentally, through 17 cards, we've gotten Energy, we've gotten Proliferation,
got Ward,
we've gotten Ward, we've gotten Burn, we've got some Artifact Synergy, we've got some Proliferation Synergies. It's all starting to happen from these different curators making a roll. And it's interesting when May asked me back to the assignment, does the roles equal archetypes? I'm like, I don't know yet. We'll see what happens, right? So as people submit their 5 cards or whatever, we'll see what unveils, and then we'll have to curate from there. We'll have to kind of pick it apart. But for right now, it's so interesting that the Rinth roll has now actually found a Nori instead of Norin. That I love that all by itself. I didn't even know this card existed. But this next one, how do you do spicy mayo? Well, he went with a spicy card. You want to tell them about this spicy card?
So this is Mayhem Devil. 1, a black and a red for a creature devil. 3/3. Whenever a player sacrifices a permanent, Mayhem Devil deals 1 damage to any target. It's just a bit of a spicy card, right?
It already has synergies already happening right in front of us.
We do.
Incidental. And what's even cooler, so how do we do Tobiko, which is the little eggs, right? How do we do eggs? With eggs.
Like
with
the rocks,
eggs.
but the eggs.
With eggs.
May, would you mind reading this first one, Pirate Spellbomb, and tell them what it does?
So Pyrite Spellbomb is a 1-mana artifact. You can pay a red to sacrifice it and deal 2 damage to any target, or you can pay 1 colorless to sacrifice it and draw a card. They're also known as eggs.
And then the next one was Ether Spellbomb. Do you mind telling them what that one does?
So it's a similar shtick. It's a 1-mana artifact, but this time you can pay 1 blue to bounce something, or you can pay 1 colorless to draw a card.
Isn't it so fascinating? Because I'm getting this back and forth, too, from Rinth, like, what are you doing? I'm like, oh, yeah, I get what you're doing now. It's cool. So, like, Rinth has now
I picked up what they were putting down. I was here for it.
It's really great, right? Like, so now there's, like, these amazing artifact synergies, sacrifice synergies beginning to happen. Mm-hmm. Incidental, not trying too hard.
I mean, I don't know. I wasn't in the room with them, obviously, but it certainly seems like they've put some serious thought into these cards, right? This isn't... I refuse to believe that this is by accident. That
about 35 minutes on return of investment.
Yeah, which is pretty outstanding.
Yeah.
That's outstanding work. Well done.
So, if anybody's listening to this episode, and I hope that you are, I think you get what we're putting down here. I want community engagement. We want community engagement. Would you agree, May? Like, this is a cool project.
We want you to send us your fun packages.
Yeah.
Send us some rolls.
And send it.
Send us some sushi rolls, and it can be anything from like real world class down to your gas station sushi.
You can do uramaki, you can do hosomaki, you can do fukamaki, you can do tamaki. It's gonna be fun. Nigiri, sashimi, onigiri. I mean, have fun.
Give us your creative interpretation.
And and please explain your links here so we understand, so we know how to connect the dots. Because May and I ultimately are going to try to curate this. I think it's going to be fun.
Mm-hmm.
It's awesome. I think this is a project that's got some serious legs to it. I will say, every time that we've done some kind of engagement with the community, when we've asked for some kind of feedback about something or give us some ideas, we always get some incredible ideas from the community. So I'm just excited to see what kind of sushi rolls we get.
Absolutely.
Bring them.
And thank you very much, Rinth, for actually making the spicy ramen cube, which will be in our show notes. If you haven't checked out this cube and the inspiration for this entire show, outside of Crab Abomination, imitation crab meat, we're going to refer to it as going forward. But I think it's so neat that you can now see like thematic cube design with pseudo restrictions, but kind of kept everybody in the dark. And now listeners get a little bit more light shed on the idea. And then you can kind of see where our headspace goes when you hear all these weird things like over encumbered becoming a cucumber, or you hear an elemental because May's looking at it from the way it's actually shaped. And then I'm looking at a cactus
Hellion,
saying,
actually.
it's so neat, right? Like it's so cool to see different people looking at things from their, I guess, their own personal
perspective.
Right? It's their own methods. And I'm okay. I want this to be like method acting. That's what we're doing here. So this can be so cool.
I'm looking at May now, and all I'm thinking is one day this cube's going to be together, and someone's going to call something a cucumber, and I can see May going all Hermione Granger. It's cucumber.
Cucumber.
Ron, it's cucumber.
So this has been a fun episode. I hope everybody's actually enjoyed this. You can now see what we're trying to do. You can get into the headspaces. You want to be a curator, please send me this information. Join the UberCube Discord, which we'll have a link for in the show notes. And post your decks and all the things that we do here. But we want to hear from you. We want additions from our listeners. And we want to turn this into something. And then May and I will do the cherry picking. We'll probably ask Chris to come into this too, Sandwich, to help really clean this up. And we'll make it into something fun. We're shooting for 180 right now. We'll see what this becomes, right? Who knows? This might be in, strangely enough, in CubeCon next year or a dumpster fire type environment.
We'll find out.
Anything's possible.
Anything's possible
Anything's
when you start
possible.
making sushi rolls. All right, so we've got a few events that Stu's going to tell you all about here.
All right, first of all, we want to give a shout out to the Capital Cube Championship for 2024. This is going to be on August 17th, which is a Saturday. We have a link to this Cube Championship in our show notes, and we'll make sure that we get the word out there on the socials as well. All proceeds of the Capital Cube Championship are going to go to So Others Might Eat, to help those in need in their community. So a fantastic cause. Best of luck to them. That's going to be a fantastic event. And also Cube for a Cause. This is on Saturday, August 24th of 2024 from 10 a.m. until 3 p.m. This is a twice-year 64-player for charity event. It's going to be on the Saturday and the Sunday. All profits will be donated to UNRWA. This is an aid organization supporting Palestinian refugees, and further details will be found at the link, which is www.upkeepnewyork.com. $65 for a ticket. Go on here. We talked with the Upkeep New York with Scott
Mertz, yeah.
And he obviously very passionate Cube guy. This is going to be, I'm jealous. I wish I was going to this one. Of all the events, this one I think is going to be really awesome.
I'm going to try to make it to the Capital Cube Championships. It's on my radar. I have to figure out my own personal planning around all the things that we have to do, like medical visits, dog planning, etc. But it's on my radar. I really want to be there.
All right. First of all, let's give a huge shout out to our patrons, to Brian Keaton, Lord Justice, Chris Singer, Nick LaPointe, Preston, and Sam McKenna. Big thank you to all of you guys for the ongoing support. Really does go a long way towards keeping the lights on. If you want to get involved in the discussion regarding your favorite format, it's your favorite format's favorite format, which is Cube, you can check out the drafting page at facebook.com/groups/MTGCube, where our resident Anthony Adams, aka Uber Bear, is an admin over there. And you know what being an admin to a Facebook group does to you?
It means we're almost crossing 900.
Your power is unlimited.
Unlimited.
As always, if you love the show, we would truly appreciate. Give us a 5-star review on your chosen podcast platform. You can also use our altersleeves.com/UberCube affiliate link. Go get 5% off your purchase, as well as our inkedgaming.com/UberCube affiliate link.
You were just shopping there, weren't you?
I was. I'm looking for a new playmat.
Well, I'm working on actually taking our logo and just kind of doing the whole Coke thing. At this point, I think people kind of know who we are. I want to just go and condense it straight up to the bear image. I'm working on that this week.
That would be pretty awesome, because that is a cool piece of art as well. Go check out Ink Gaming, not just for your mouse pads or your playmats, but if you want
large volume products,
bulk volume products, you want to get your whole neighborhood into Cube, that's the place to go. You can also reach us at Twitter. We are at UberCubeMTGPod. You can also hit us up via email if you've got a question about an episode or you just want to have a longer chat. You can find us at UberCubeMTGPodcast@gmail.com. As always, we always push for the Discord. Lots of cool conversation going on there. I want to see those decks. I want to see those deck boast channels just going absolutely bananas. And we also have a new little forum set up. If anyone out there has either got an old cube, a new cube, whatever, you're just looking for help. You want some advice. You want some feedback. Come along, post your cube. We've got a ton of people in there who can give some great advice.
I'm going to throw the Sushi-Cube project that we're working on, Sushi-Go, and we're going to push it up in there too, so we can start getting feedback there.
I think that's the best place for it. Let's get some comments. Let's get some sushi. And again, huge shout out and a big thanks to all of our Patreons. We are at patreon.com/UberCube. Really goes a long way towards keeping the lights on. And, these microphone stands ain't cheap.
And one more thing before we peace out is going to be, we'll have the links for this project we're doing, this living cube that we're going to be working together as a community. And we're going to get your feedback, and I'm going to be adding them so you can see your cards getting added, your packages getting added, and then May and I will crop them eventually. That's just how we're going to have to do it.
It's going to be a live cube.
Yep. Could be kind of fun.
Cool. Awesome. Well, as always, thank you to all of our listeners, to May and to Anthony. Much love to you guys, and we're going to end with what we always do here and say, Happy cubing.
Nice. Give us sushi.
Go sushi.
Go sushi.